Viewers of Entrepreneurship TV, welcome to today's show. In today's show, we've got Chiedza. Chiedza is a legal expert. She's here to discuss with us in terms of patents and or intellectual property law. Chiedza, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
For our international guests and all those that are watching us, we have decided to invite a lawyer because a lot of people have faced the challenges when it comes to working with patents, trademarks, and some of these things that are not legally protected. And when they are faced with disputes, they are found wanting. Now, Chiedza, my first question to you would want to find out, what does intellectual property law entail?
I'll explain that briefly. Intellectual property law deals with the protection of creativity and innovation, essentially. So if a person is to create, let's say, a trademark, or is to create a design of a certain feature, they have to be protected in terms of the intellectual property law. So essentially, it's just for the protection of creativity and innovation.
Where does one register for intellectual property rights?
Okay. You have the Zimbabwe Intellectual Property Office. For short, it's called ZIPO, Z-I-P-O. Or you can go to the African Regional Intellectual Property Organization. In short, it's called the ARIPO. Or you can go under the Madrid International Trademark System. And in short, it's referred to as the Madrid system. So before one's rights can be protected under intellectual property, they have to be registered, so that you are able to enforce them against third parties in Zimbabwe or internationally.
Chiedza, if I'm talking to somebody who would want to make sure that they've registered properly, what are some of the intellectual property rights recognized and or categories that one can register?
Okay. There's some common ones that if I say them, most of the viewers will be more likely to identify. Those are your trademarks, your copyright and neighboring rights. You also have your patents. These are the usual ones that come up in conversation. But you also have a few more, like your plant breeders' rights. You also have the geographical indications and industrial designs. These are also intellectual property rights that are registrable. Those are just some of the examples.
Thank you very much for that, Chiedza. We're just going to go for a very short break. To our viewers, please stay tuned with us. We're discussing a very critical and a very important aspect to do with intellectual property rights. Please stay tuned as we go for a short break. We'll be back very soon.
Success for Tel One means success for businesses, government departments, and all our residential clients, bringing into play a digitally enabled society by 2023. Tel One offers superfast, affordable, and dedicated internet services across the country over fiber, copper, or satellite to meet the customer's needs, location, and budget. All of this can be secured with virtual private networks. Cloud services and the data center allow you, our customers, to store, manage, and disseminate all your data in a state-of-the-art private facility. Business Talk has become more affordable with our voice over internet protocol. VoIP allows you to make voice calls using any broadband internet connection and has massive potential savings as a cheaper mode of communication, making business processes more efficient and profitable. The use of unified business communication for our corporate clients offers a competitive advantage by managing multiple tools such as phone, video conferencing, email, customer service, and more. Stay connected all the time and bring your business up to speed with Tel One. Tel One, bringing you
to... Viewers, welcome back. We still have got Chiedza. Chiedza is a lawyer. She's discussing with us in terms of intellectual property law. Cheds, I would want to find out from you if a person happens to want to be involved in a business that probably the rights have not yet been registered in Zimbabwe, but they may have been registered outside Zimbabwe regionally and internationally. How does one go about that?
As I'd said before, it's important to register your rights. If we're talking about copyrights, patents, or trademarks, it's important to have those registered. So you approach your Zimbabwe Intellectual Properties Office, you get those registered. Because now you don't want a situation where you rush and you say, okay, fine, I want to register. But then you find that someone else has already registered the same patent. So now before, like I understand if you go into business, I'm going to just give a brief example. You go into business, you have this great idea, this great design that you have. And maybe you do not have the capital. And then you approach someone, an investor or someone who has the capital, and you want to show them that it's actually very good for them to invest in you because you have a good idea. But now by disclosing your invention to them, you risk the chance that they might go and register it before you and claim it as their own. So now people, before they disclose their inventions, the copyrights, whatever it is, before they disclose it, they make people sign what are known as non-disclosure agreements, where you are trying to protect yourself to say, whatever it is we're going to discuss, whatever it is I'm going to show you, you cannot disclose it. It can't go beyond the four walls or beyond the parties involved now. And then you can engage a person where there is such an agreement on the table. So it also protects the person who's also looking for an investor, so to speak.
Thanks very much for that, Cheds. And now my next question is going to focus on Copyright Act as well as the Neighboring Act. What does this talk about?
Okay, so now if you're looking at your copyright or neighboring rights, you're looking at an act that defines the type of works that are eligible for protection in Zimbabwe. Some of the works that are eligible in terms of the copyright protection, you have literary works, you also have artistic works, you have sound recordings and audio visuals. So now, to just make it simple, you can go online right now. A person can go on Google. You search for a certain document, it has information that you need. Sometimes if you press the print option on the page, or even if you select the words or the document, it actually denies. It says no. There's a pop-up that comes on the page that says this work is copyright protected. If you want access to such a work, purchase it, and then it already moves you to another page where you have an option to pay for the work and stuff. So you can see the benefits of having some of these works that are listed copyright protected, so that people don't just benefit from your work, whether it be books. I remember in university, you couldn't photocopy a textbook. Certain textbooks, they would, if you go to a copier shop, they would turn you away like, no, we don't want the police here. Can you go away? We can't, because this information, this book is copyright protected. So it also benefits the person who holds a copyright over such a work. And that's why you even see that even our artists, like you have your audio visuals, some of the works that I listed, and you have your artists here now who it's actually well known in Zimbabwe that you can't take their song, you buy it on the streets, someone just made a photocopy and they just copied it and they have a CD and stuff. That work is protected for the benefits of the artists, so that at least they also have a financial gain out of it. So essentially, you see the importance of the copyright, neighboring rights protection, yes.
Jeza, thank you very much. My last question within this segment now would want to focus on patents. What are patents and how do they function or how do they work?
Okay. So now when you look at a patent, it's a legal document given by the Patents Office for the protection of an invention. That the invention now has to be new. It also has to be inventive and industrially applicable. To bring it closer, let's look at sports patents. Your gym equipment, they are patented because someone created them. There was an innovation where someone said, this has to go there, this has to go there, and they created something. Even your golf clubs, someone created them. So, okay, fine, if these are the best golf clubs, they created them, and that person has to benefit. So now those are some of the examples of patents, of inventions that are useful, and they are now registered and protected under the Patents Act.
Thank you very much, Chedza. We're now going to go for another very short break. To our viewers who are watching us now, please stay with us. We're just going to go for a short break. When you come back, Chedza is going to continue talking to us in terms of what are some of the intellectual property rights that people need to make sure that they are protected. Our viewers all over the world, welcome back. We now have entered the final segment of the show where we're talking to a lawyer, a corporate lawyer for that matter, Shoniwa. She's talking to us in terms of what are intellectual property rights and how does one go about making sure that they've protected them. Chiedza, welcome back to the show.
Thank you.
Chiedza, we've discussed a lot before. Now I would want to focus on the issue to do with trademarks. What are trademarks?
Trademarks, let's start with the Trademarks Act. If we're to look at the Trademarks Act, it provides for the registration of trademarks as well as defensive and collective marks. So now it's a mark defined as any sign capable of graphic representation and capable of distinguishing goods or services of one from another. I'm going to give an example. You have trademarks that are well known. You have your brands, it be Coca-Cola, it be Apple, it be Schweppes. If you see that's a trademark. If you see something, if you see Schweppes, you already know, okay, fine, those are your drinks, and you already know which field or goods that the trademark is associated with. And then now, even if you have your Colgate, you actually know the products that are associated with it. If you have your Apple, you know what products are associated with it. And I think trademarks are quite important, especially to entrepreneurs now. They are starting their businesses and you have to be identified. So now you have certain logos that are coming up. you have, even if you see Tel One, already the sign from a distance, you can tell, okay, this is Tel One, you know what their business is about. That's a logo for you. That's a mark. That's distinguishable from one organization to the next. And they benefit from this. Now, the importance now of having trademarks is this. You have your, I will not mention countries by name, but you have certain products. For example, you have your Samsung, and you have some countries or some individuals who counterfeit such products, and they use seemingly similar logos. But if you look closely, then you'll realize, no, it's not the same logo. It's really not. Someone is trading on the garments of someone else. So now you have a situation where if now Samsung or if Apple or whatever logo that we know already has a trademark registered, then it means they have a legal right to approach the relevant authorities to say, you know what, this person is abusing our logo, making use of our logo, and they are selling counterfeit products or even inferior products sometimes, which are meant to even confuse the consumers. Where you run and you're excited, I bought a Rolex watch. And then when you really look at it, where people actually who know what the mark looks like, you can see a bit of distinction. So now your trademarks are really essentially important. But they're also important for our entrepreneurs. When you're starting your business, people have to know your business through the logo that you have. You look at Entrepreneurship Couch. Now, even if you see it from a distance and even on YouTube and you see it's just one of the videos amongst many, you can tell that, oh, okay, fine, this is Entrepreneurship Couch. Okay, so those logos are important. But now what people do is when they start, for them, they seem it's unnecessary to register because they just think, it's just unnecessary. But now once the business is growing and you have more people coming through, you don't want a situation where someone now takes the logo, runs with it, registers it first, and then you are left there to say, alas, now I have to start justifying my case and saying, because at that moment before registration, you really do not have a right against third parties. You just have a trademark. It's not even a trademark. You just have a logo that or a mark that you're using, but you haven't protected yourself by registering the logo or the mark that you're making use of in business.
Thank you very much, Chedza. My last question, I'm not so sure if I should mix the two questions, but it's entirely up to you in terms of how you're going to respond to our viewers. The first one has got something to do with dispute resolution when it comes to the issues to do with intellectual property law. The second one would now focus on, if you look at Africa, it seems a lot of entrepreneurs and business people seem to be slow when it comes to understanding intellectual property law as well as the registration of these rights. So I would want to hear from you first. How does one go about making sure that the dispute, if ever it arises, it's resolved? And then the second thing is what is it that can be done to raise awareness for entrepreneurs and business people in Africa to understand the need to register?
Okay. Firstly, if there is a dispute that arises, the first port of call is to even say you have legal rights against a third party. It be a trademark, patent, copyright. It has to be registered with the relevant offices that we spoke of, the Zimbabwe Intellectual Properties Office, or ARIPO, which is the African Regional Intellectual Property Organization. You have to have that work registered under the relevant categories. And then now, if there is a dispute now that may arise, where you actually have a right against a third party. Then now in Zimbabwe, you have the Intellectual Property Tribunal, which you approach. It is a special division of the High Court. Because I believe they created it so that even the judges that sit within that tribunal are aware of intellectual property. They deal with the issues, and it's within their grasp of understanding. So then you approach them. But sometimes before even you approach court or you file papers, you can approach the party where there is seemingly a dispute, and you might try to resolve it between the two of you. But with the assistance of legal representatives, yes, in some instances. But then at least you can engage and see, is there a way forward? Is there a way you can settle the matter before going to court? Though it's not really necessary, but to save costs, you can just engage the other party and see where they stand. But then if you realize that you're not getting headway, then you approach the tribunal for whatever relief that you may seek. Now, or going on the second part of the question, like how to raise awareness. You're right. There are not so many cases, though they are there though, but there are not so many cases where people are registering patents, where people are registering their trademarks. There are just a few. You have some that are aware, or you have international organizations in Zimbabwe who have registered. But you see, if you look at it, it's not a lot of people, especially entrepreneurs. There are not so many that are registering their marks. And the process is not even difficult. For example, your trademarks. Your trademarks, you just need to file 10 copies of the mark, and it has to be distinguishable. You file it with the relevant offices that I stated before, and you pay a certain fee. It's those simple things that people take as if it's complicated. But I believe that where we are now going, even in Africa, where there is now technology advancement, and we're now no longer in different countries, we're just now one, where people are trading from country to country, and even logos, let's say from South Africa, we know if you see MTN, you know what that is. You know it's a company in South Africa. We now know all those things. But I think there's just need to push and to encourage entrepreneurs to say, you know what, your brand might seem small today, but in a few years, it will be one of the biggest things, because there's some brands that we didn't know of. But now they are really big brands. You have your Quesays, they're big brands now. But when they started, people ask, which brand is this? What products do they supply? What's happening? But it's always relevant and necessary to say, even at that stage where you start your business, to register whatever, whether it be you're an artist, to have those works protected. And I believe even the show that we have now, Entrepreneurship Couch, it also allows for people to get the knowledge to say, oh, okay, fine, it's actually an important concept to protect, whether be it my patents, whether it whatever intellectual property right that they have. So I know, so at least that allows the advancement of information so that people do not remain ignorant, but they realize that they need to protect their own rights.
Thank you very much for that. To our viewers across the globe, we are very grateful. We have been talking to a lawyer, Chiedza. She has been talking to us in terms of what is it that we're supposed to do to make sure that intellectual property law is understood. We have gone out to protect the trademarks as well as the patents. Chiedza, thank you very much for the time that we've had. We look forward to talk to you again very soon in the very same program, The Legal Brief, where we take this opportunity to alert and conscientize a lot of entrepreneurs in terms of the law. Once again, I would want to take this opportunity to express my gratitude for the time that you've come. To our viewers across the globe, may you continue to subscribe and watch out for future shows.